Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I'm pleading that the decision makers find their moral compass and understand what they're doing to us and our children, because it's not right.
Hundreds of people living at a North Shore marina say they've been told to shove off for repairs, and many worry there's nowhere else to go. Plus,
and I was just like, oh my God, it's like a 19 times increase of rates, which seems crazy, and I don't know even how that's legal.
Swiftie sticker shock. Several Vancouver hotels are offering rooms during the singers' concerts next year for thousands of dollars a night. And
it has been a roller coaster.
El Nino is absolutely on a lot of people's minds.
Winter waiting game. Drought and climate change means some BC ski resorts are off to a slow start.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Dan Burritt. Thanks for joining us. Hundreds of people living at a North Vancouver marina say they have been handed an eviction notice. The popular area says it needs to repair docks, which will displace many residents who live in boats and boat sheds. As John Hernandez reports, some say they are stunned and worried they have nowhere else to go.
I put in a double sink so I can wash and dry my dishes.
Still a work in progress, Elizabeth McKinnon thought this new home would be her new beginning.
My husband had passed away at just the beginning of the year, very suddenly, and what money I had left, I put in to buy this place. This roof is new.
She bought this boat shed at Mosquito Creek Marina in North Vancouver. Here, dozens of residents have converted the floating structures into homes.
I love being in the water, and I really wanted to be in a community like this one where people take care of one another.
But on Wednesday, she was handed what amounts to an eviction notice. A letter sent to hundreds of residents said the marina docks reached their end of serviceable life and that they will need to permanently close the marina docks. The hundreds of people who live on boats and in boat sheds here have to leave by May 31st. McKinnon says she's still in shock.
I'm just realizing that with that notice, where do I move a $500,000 property? You can't move a float home anywhere, which means I'm going to walk away from this place with my 2 dogs and my bird and be left penniless on the street.
The marina is run by the Squamish Nation's Nikkei Development Corporation, which is looking at redevelopment plans. While float homes along the perimeter will be allowed to stay, residents from across the marina are coming together to fight back.
Some of us are talking to lawyers, we're exploring options for a class action lawsuit, but really we want an option where we get to stay and that we don't see the marina cleared out in order to bring in new docks. We want a phased approach.
We are emailing the council and asking them to reconsider other options, and there are other options. I really truly believe that.
This couple spent their life savings on a boat shed and raised their kids here. With nowhere to move it, they fear it will become worthless.
I'm pleading that the decision makers find their moral compass and understand what they're doing to us and our children, because it's not right.
In a statement, Nikkei said it will work with boat owners to explore viable options for their homes, while residents hold out hope they can turn the tide. John Hernandez, CBC News, North Vancouver.
Premier David Eby has issued a roadmap to help local governments bring the province's housing laws to life.
Very detailed guidance documents, if you're really level 5 on this stuff, released today. It's the fine print, but the fine print that enables the homes and will assist municipalities in acting quickly to implement these changes.
Eby was speaking to business leaders at a BC Chamber of Commerce luncheon. He says economists forecast the province's housing plans could lead to about 250,000 new units over the next decade. The government passed a series of housing-related bills this fall, including restrictions on short-term rentals and boosting density in public transit areas. Exactly 1 year from now, Taylor Swift will be performing here in Vancouver. Several hotels are already advertising room rates 13 times above average for those concert dates. It has some fans and government critics questioning how extreme price gouging is allowed. As Tanya Fletcher reports, the province says it's now in talks with the industry to limit hotel surge pricing.
She's the hottest show on the planet right now, just named Time Magazine's Person of the Year. And come December of next year, Taylor Swift will be bringing her Eras Tour to BC Place for 3 nights.
It's so good to be back in Canada.
Fans are flocking to Vancouver from all over the world, including Sarah Palmer, who's flying in from Florida with her partner and a friend. That is, if they can find a place to stay.
Vancouver was the only city we were able to get tickets to. And I knew it was going to be hard. Taylor Swift is like the Super Bowl. I knew it was going to be really difficult to get hotels.
She made contact with the Quality Inn on Granville Street downtown. For 2 nights in a standard room, she was quoted upwards of $3,700. The hotel explicitly said rates had gone up to match demand during the Taylor Swift concert dates.
And I was just like, oh my God, I could get a hotel room in their hotel this weekend for $98 a night. So that's like a 19 times increase of rates, which seems crazy. And I don't know even how that's legal.
CBC News asked the Quality Inn how they arrived at that price. Management said rates are based on availability. And when there's a big event in town, that availability goes down.
That was definitely like a shock that someone would even want to do that or charge people or take advantage of people in that way.
And it's not just that hotel either. Many only open up their rooms a year in advance. Her first show is exactly a year from now. So if you go on Expedia and look at those dates in December, you can see several rooms listed at $1,700, $1,800, even $1,900 per night. Keep scrolling even further, you'll see many are sold out altogether. The BC Greens are arguing the province needs to do something about it, saying, quote, this is further evidence of a government with no interest in protecting people from unfettered profiteering. Instead, the NDP continues to rely on the same free market structures that got us into this crisis to get us out of it. BC does have a piece of legislation called the Hotel Keepers Act, but it's largely in place to protect accommodation providers. We asked the province whether it would look at any mechanisms to prevent hotel surge pricing. Before considering changes to any laws, the government says the first step is to consult with the industry. The tourism minister telling CBC News, quote, people deserve fair prices. The province is reaching out to hotels to discuss fair pricing for major events to ensure there's appropriate balance between visitor experience and hotel sustainability for people visiting BC.
If the trajectory continues, the demand continues, hotel prices will go up. They are a function of supply and demand.
The tourism industry says Vancouver is roughly 15 years behind in terms of supply.
We need to build hotels, but we have not put the emphasis on the policy and permitting to speed up the development of hotels.
The sector has started an accommodations task force to work with the city. One city councillor admits something needs to change.
So the rates, just like rents when they go up, when we don't have enough places for people to rent somewhere to live, same with hotel rooms. So it gets much more expensive.
This fall, City Council passed a motion to look at updating zoning rules.
That was the signal that Council sent very clearly, is that we want to look at creative proposals and options. And so hopefully we'll get a report back from staff soon that gives us some really concrete updates to policy.
But in the meantime, some fans might end up relying on each other for a place to stay.
I know a lot of people on the Facebook group that I am have thrown out their homes for other Swifts coming into town. So I know that like other people in the city would take care of the people traveling in.
She adds it's disheartening to pay $175 for the concert ticket, while her accommodation will likely cost 10 times that. And there's nothing she can do about it. Tanya Fletcher, CBC News, Vancouver.
Waitlist fees at many daycares in BC, meanwhile, are coming to an end. Starting in April, childcare providers who receive operating funds from the provincial government will no longer be allowed to charge a fee for waitlists. The province says the change will reduce financial barriers for families and provide more equitable access to childcare.
Access to affordable quality childcare is life-changing for families. It's good for the economy. It's good for communities. And we know many families are still struggling to find those spots.
She says increasing spaces is an ongoing goal, especially as the Coalition of Childcare Advocates of BC reports that about 75% of children in our province still do not have access to a licensed childcare space. Despite some rain here on the south coast, large swaths of our province are still under severe drought. Near Prince George, the lack of rain is starting to hit people who rely on wells. The CBC's Kate Partridge has more on a potentially pricey fix.
Normally the water would be up to where it's discolored in the tank here. I would say there's maybe 3 feet of water in there.
Joanne Daly has been living off well water at her rural home for the past decade, but 6 weeks ago her well ran dry.
So we have been hauling water. We have about 6 jugs that we fill up at my daughter's house in the city. We go to families' houses for showers. I now have to go to the laundromat to do laundry.
The region has seen drought conditions since late June. The Fraser River so dry, dog walkers in Prince George have been using the sandy riverbed as a park. Dave Mercer with the BC Groundwater Drilling Association says this year is a warning of things to come.
It's definitely a trend that we've been observing. It's not a one-off sort of event. We're expecting that drought conditions and dropping water levels in aquifers will be something we need to be prepared for in the future, because it's just going to keep happening.
The province says the central interior is in its 2nd year of prolonged drought. Mercer has some advice for those living on well water.
They are going to need to, in the near future, think about drilling the well deeper.
Daly says she's thinking about it, but it's costly. In the meantime, she's canceling Christmas dinner at her house until she has water from the taps once again. Kate Partridge, CBC News, Prince George.
It's not just wells in BC. Many of our province's ski hills are facing their slowest start in decades due to a lack of snow. Many fear the problem, worsening due to climate change, will last throughout the season, as El Nino years tend to see less snow, especially on coastal mountains. Georgie Smythe takes us to the hills.
BC ski season has been a waiting game.
You can't blame anything but just, whatever happens, right? So we've got snow and everybody was anticipating rain, so this is perfect. This is a good start to the season.
It took a lot of work to cover this hill, scraping up the little snow that's fallen even from the parking lot.
It has been a roller coaster to get the mountain open. We had 95 centimeters of snow last week, and then 70 millimeters plus of rain on Monday. The team's been working for months to get us to this point.
A thin snowpack has delayed resort openings from Whistler to Revelstoke.
It's hard to say because it's hard to predict. But on the coast is always more challenging in an El Nino year. But interior mountains can be impacted as well, so as can the Rockies. So I think everybody's pretty worried.
A summer drought extended into a warm, dry fall, so little rain that did fall failed to freeze as snow.
Yeah, El Nino is absolutely on a lot of people's minds.
This year, that weather pattern, which affects the Pacific jet stream, could also mean less snow, especially for lower elevation coastal mountains.
We could be looking at a milder than normal winter season.
Water scientists say it's still too early to predict if less precipitation will affect BC's water supply in the spring. For now, every snowflake counts.
We all need snow, and we know it's coming. We just have to be patient.
At Cypress in West Vancouver, 84 snow guns are working overtime.
We'll all do everything we can to, make snow, to clear trails, to manage the experience, and ultimately, we're working with Mother Nature. So we're gonna work around what Mother Nature brings for us.
To make the best of any snow that falls. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Weather specialist Darius Madavi joins us now with a first look at the forecast. Darius, we talked about this from summer to now fall as we head into winter, and still huge swaths of this province still under drought.
Yes, very unusual. This is very reminiscent of last year at this time when we were also under severe drought conditions this far into the fall. But the difference here is that last year we didn't have those drought conditions start so early in the year. So now we've had those drought conditions carry over from last fall into the beginning of this drought season and now continued right through the end. We've gotten our last drought update from the season. We'll look at that later this hour and see how it compares to where we were last year. But it is an unprecedented situation. It'll be difficult to tell what it's going to affect next year, even as we get into the fire season. But in terms of snow, there is some coming to the local mountains, at least in much of BC, because we're going to have another system crash into the coast, another atmospheric river action that's going to push some flurries to the local mountains and into the interior. So expect there'll be some snow, at least, not going to be too much. But if you look here, you can see the last bit of precipitation from that last system still pushing into the province earlier today, but now has moved out and down into Washington, and you can just see the little bit of snow on parts of the island, but mostly we're looking at rain and a bit of snow for the local mountains earlier today. If we zoom out, you can see the moisture that's coming for BC later this week. You can see that atmospheric river come on and then come just south of BC, the worst of it, but some of it will still be making its way here. So expect some heavy precipitation for the coast on Saturday, and then some flurries to push into the interior. And we'll have a closer look at that later this hour.
Okay, thanks very much, Darius.
Thanks, Dan.
A new provincially funded emergency shelter in Maple Ridge is giving a safe haven for teenagers as young as 15. It comes as the government says young people are at an increased risk of substance use, exploitation, and homelessness. Janella Hamilton takes us inside.
Vulnerable youth in need of a safe place to stay can now access this 24/7 emergency shelter here in Maple Ridge. We're going to learn more about why this space is one of a kind and why those who work here say the need is so great. Let's just start off with the space in which we're at, because you have a few different aspects to this shelter.
Yes, for sure. So we can go into the bedrooms first.
Yeah.
So we can go over here where we have our beds 2 and 3. So here's where we have it labeled as bedroom 2 and 3. 2-bedroom, we will have a divider down the middle of this room. It's not currently set up yet.
I know you've worked with youth for a while now. Talk to me a little bit as to why youth are in need of a safe space like this these days.
So we just want to give a spot for youth where they can be comfortable and safe. We don't want them turning to houses where they're not necessarily safe, where they could get exploited. We want them to have somewhere where they're comfortable, where they're safe and protected, and we feel like we can provide that in this space.
As you can see, we've got naloxone kits, medications, and some emergency equipment here. Why have this on hand?
So we take youth under any circumstances, no matter what they're under the influence of. So if we need naloxone, we have it on hand. If we have a youth overdosing, we are all trained on how to deal with that. So we just need it here because we are going to accept youth under the influence of any substance.
It's not lost to anybody in British Columbia, if not, the entire country, that we have a crisis with toxic drug supply, and that impacts young people as well. And many young people who have experienced trauma are using substances to relieve themselves of that pain. So families can be in short-term crisis and need some support. This project will do that for them. It can support young people who are homeless. It can support young people who are experiencing conflict in their home, just need a little bit of a break. This is unique in the province, I should point that out, because of its open door framework, that any youth and any person in the community can refer youth 15 to 18 into this program. And we have 3 beds, so this is not a 20-bed resource. The beds are short-term. The goal is to connect them to the services that they need and the supports they need. And we're going to figure out what that is for the youth in Maple Ridge. This is a pilot. This will inform the Ministry of Children and Family Development in terms of other potential homes across the province.
Talk to us a little bit about these day programs, because I know they're a work in progress at this point. Of course, you've just opened your doors to youth 15 to 18 years old. So what will these day programs look like? What will the services look like for youth when they come here?
Yeah, so the day programming, our number one goal is to really meet what the needs of the youth and the community are. So we have a few different ideas where it could be bringing in someone to teach youth first aid. So then they could get a first aid certificate and add that to their resume. So do some things around resume building for these clients and provide them with the opportunity to learn new skills.
What are some of those, everyday struggles that people across BC and here in Maple Ridge are dealing with?
We're all facing the struggles of the increase of prices that are happening out there, increase with food prices, increase with just everyday living prices, and really trying to manage living with that. And I think we face that in Maple Ridge. We face that all within the Lower Mainland. And then, that could be leading to an increase of youth we might be seeing on the streets. There's a reason why this community advocated so hard for this youth emergency shelter to come into place. And it's because the community really has been seeing a great need for this.
That was Janella Hamilton reporting. Coming up, tonight is the first night of Hanukkah, and to mark the Jewish holiday, we're going to take a look back into our vast archives, into a dark day here in Vancouver in 1985. Stay with us. Thanks for joining our commercial-free live stream. If you have a pet, you know that it can snow and ice can be hard for them to get around. And imagine if you have mobility issues. And, of course, your pet needs to still go for a walk. So a group in Regina has decided to have some volunteers help out.
Are you a good dog today? Oh, you're looking for treats, aren't you? I've had Josie for 3.5 years now. She's been my constant companion, and I love her, and I would surely miss her if I had to find another home for her, which is what I thought I would have to do. I thought I'd have to find a home for her because I have congestive heart failure now, and I wasn't doing very good for a while. With volunteers' help, they come. They've got a big thing with their picture on it that says that they're with this organization, so you know who's coming to your door. They have criminal records checks, and you can trust them to come in your house and take your pets and go off for a walk with your little dog and bring it back twice as happy.
If it can help a senior keep their dog at home and not have to give it up if they, for health reasons can't get out, I think it's important to be able to keep that association for people that want to keep their dogs but maybe can't get out and walk them. So I think it's a good idea all around. And it is just an initiative just getting started, but hopefully it'll take off more.
We have quite a few people who are very excited to walk a dog and are very interested in helping us in that way for volunteering. But what we don't have are seniors who are signing up for our services. I'm hoping that as bad as this is going to sound, as the weather gets worse, we're going to end up getting some more people who would be interested in that, especially with the snow.
Did you have fun? Such a blessing to me. Really, she's just everything. I have no family. All my brothers and sisters have passed away. I have no children, no husband. I have Josie, and I thought I had to get rid of her, and that was very traumatic for me.
For me already, but you've been sniffing my hand.
You don't make her work.
Tonight is the first night of Hanukkah. Jewish communities around the world are lighting the first candle on their menorahs, including here in BC. To mark the start of the holiday, we're remembering a dark moment in our province's history. In January of 1985, a firebomb ripped through the Temple Shalom Synagogue on West 10th Avenue in Vancouver. Congregation members rushed to their house of worship to save what they could. Much of it was destroyed, but some artifacts were rescued. In our segment, From the Archives, we look back at that day.
The search continues for the person or persons responsible for the arson attack that gutted the interior of the temple last week. It's seen as an example of naked anti-Semitism. This weekend, members of the Temple Shalom congregation held their regular religious ceremonies in the Jewish Community Center. Mayor Harcourt was there to give assurances that attacks such as that made on the temple cannot and will not be tolerated.
Said that this was not just a tragedy that affected the congregation of Temple Shalom and the Jewish community. It was a tragedy that affects us all. It is a blow against our freedom, not just our freedom of religious worship, but our freedom as a community. And it's very important for us to be part in the rebuilding, all of us, of Temple Shalom.
Rabbi Philip Bregman said the firebombing should serve as a warning to all Canadians who respect freedom of worship.
If our synagogue could be bombed, so could their church, so could their library, so could any institution which fosters democracy, justice, and peace. For that's what our synagogue stands for, and that's what the churches of Canada stand for.
Today, members of the congregation expressed astonishment that an arson attack on a synagogue could take place in this country, in this city, and at this time in history.
It's kind of like it was kind of out of my mind that I thought anti-Semitism was not really a thing that was a major factor.
It makes you, you know, like you heard all these things, you know, we think about Nazi Germany, all that, no, but you always think, oh, it'll never happen here, you know, it'll happen anywhere else, but not here. And all of a sudden you realize, whoa, it can happen here. It just kind of brings it home. Yeah, it's scary.
In one way, it's very frightening, because when I was carrying the books out of the building, I thought to myself, this is something that was done in my parents' generation. They carried books out of burning synagogues. I never thought I would have to do that.
I don't know what it is, but it scares me. That's all. You know, we run away. I'm not going to run again.
Terry Dolan reporting in 1985. Among the voices you heard in that story, Rabbi Philip Bregman, who was the head of Temple Shalom at the time of the firebombing 38 years ago. Our Maurice Katz caught up with Rabbi Bregman to look back at that time and how things have changed since.
And about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning, I got a phone call from the fire chief and said, Rabbi, your synagogue is fully engulfed, and we believe it's a bomb. You have any reason to believe anybody would be inside? I said, thank God, no.
Rabbi Bregman vividly remembers that day, January 25th, 1985.
As you might have heard, right next to that window was this Hanukkah menorah. Everything else is destroyed on that floor except that menorah.
Temple Shalom was rebuilt 3 years after the bombing, and that menorah is still being used there today.
This is the part here that we believe, when the fire got so hot, that it happened to burn this one weld, or this one junction. And so we took it and had it welded back together and repaired it and restored it, which is so much the theme of Hanukkah, to repair, restore, and renew.
The menorah, or Hanukkah, is now an important symbol for the community.
Just like the Hanukkah, where you use one candle to kindle all the other lights, the light of this menorah, which can remind us of the light of religious freedom, can also remind us of the light of inclusion, the light of social justice, the light of peace, the light of brotherhood and sisterhood in our community, the light of respect for human life in all of its places, in all of its spaces, here in Israel, in Gaza, and around the world.
Both Rabbi Bregman in 1985 and Rabbi Moskowitz now praised the resilience of the Jewish community in the face of anti-Semitism.
This is 1985. The Jewish community in Vancouver was particularly small. But maybe in some ways the other light that was shined at that time, in the midst of the raging fire of hate that brought this terrible tragedy to our synagogue, was a spotlight was shined on the Jewish community to see that we are here, that we are a vulnerable population, and that we are worthy of the community taking notice of us and even trying to surround us with love and protection.
If our synagogue could be bombed.
They also expressed their concern over the rise of hate towards all marginalized communities.
So I can't fight anti-Semitism alone. My Muslim colleagues can't fight Islamophobia alone. The indigenous population, the black, whatever the group is, cannot fight the racism against them alone. We need to be there with each other. And with that, we give a sense of hope to each other to say, you're not alone in what's going on. And that really is the message of Hanukkah, that whatever they're going to throw at us, we're not going to let them diminish the light.
Temple Shalom's surviving menorah is one example of that light that appears in so many celebrations this holiday season, from Diwali and Kwanzaa to Christmas and Hanukkah. Maurice Katz, CBC News, Vancouver.
And tonight, members of Vancouver's Jewish community lit the first candle on their menorah. Take a look. This was just a few moments ago as they lit it at the Vancouver Art Gallery downtown. The Jewish candelabra is an important symbol in both ancient and modern Israel. It marks the message of light overcoming darkness. The lighting was followed by an event and a gathering to stand with Israel and against anti-Semitism. Canada's food price report was released today, and it warns the sticker shock for Canadians is not over. More on the findings after this.
It's kind of stressful because a lot of people have high expectations for you, but I also feel proud to have a title like that. It's really nice to have some recognition as well. Hi, my name is Giselle Akira Policarpio, and I do Sikaran and Arnis. Sikaran and Arnis is one of the ancient styles of fighting in the Philippines, Sikaran meaning foot fighting, and Arnis being a type of weapon from the Philippines.
I am Kelly Legaspi, a 5th degree black belt, one of the instructors and administrator of Winnipeg Sikaran Arnis Academy. These two martial arts are quite ancient. How they started was during the times of the Spanish invasion of the Philippines. They make it look like a dance, so the Spaniards doesn't know that they are actually preparing for war to defend the land.
What I really love about Sikaran and Arnis is that it's unique and different from other styles like karate and wushu. It's a way to test your creativity as well with like teaching yourself and disciplining your body on different ways to move. My school, we are currently known as one of the best schools in Winnipeg because all of the Winnipeg delegates who went to Ireland already came home with titles, like world titles. I brought home the 12 and 13 girls bronze and silver medalists for creative weapons and team sparring. As a Filipino Canadian who has not been to the Philippines or cannot speak the language, learning the sport and doing it is the closest thing for me to be in touch with the motherland. Connecting to my culture is important to me because I find that in a lot of my friend groups or just a lot of people that I meet in general who are Filipino, they know lots about the heritage and culture, and I feel kind of excluded from that because I was not raised like how they were. They obviously know dishes and words that I obviously do not, but I can learn from being around the people at the gym. My next steps would to eventually learn all the forms that I need to. Definitely learn how to defend myself in many more ways. Also to really help get Sikaran and Arnis recognized in the martial arts community and make a name for myself.
Grocery bills will continue to climb next year. That's the finding of a new report released today. The average family of 4 in Canada is expected to spend just over $16,000 in 2024. But price increases are also expected to be slower. And as Nisha Patel reports, you will find savings on some goods.
Shoppers have been doing what they can to stretch their budgets.
Just trying to find different ways to bring in extra income, just to be able to provide for myself.
It has to go down to pastas now and just simple sauces instead of buying chicken.
But I certainly look for items on sale.
but it is a big concern.
Over the past 2 years, grocery bills have soared, but 2024 may bring some stability to food prices. The average family of 4 is expected to spend an extra $700 annually.
We are expecting prices to go up, but in a more modest way.
Researchers predict overall food prices will increase 2.5% to 4.5% next year. Dairy and fruit costs could see moderate gains. Baked goods, meat and vegetables may see bigger price increases.
Consumers have less cash than last year, and so they're going to be looking for bargains.
A few packaged food staples like canned goods could actually get cheaper, as many industry challenges have eased.
Input prices, fertilizer prices, raw material prices, even energy prices have all come down a lot.
Still, after 2 years of sticker shock, grocery stores themselves are under intense scrutiny.
Our grocery store industry is a cozy compact between a small number of very big companies, and they were able to take advantage of this situation to fatten their own profits.
Grocery executives have repeatedly been called to Parliament Hill to face questions over rising food prices. Galen Weston is defending the record profits at Loblaws.
That is not an indication of bad practice. It's not an indication of some sort of profiteering. It's just an indication of a business operating exactly the way that it should.
Loblaws and the other big chains insist they're taking action to help consumers. Shoppers hope those price freezes and discounts will help relieve the pressure on their budgets in 2024. Nisha Patel, CBC News, Toronto.
So as we heard, prices on some things are expected to stabilize in the new year with an overall gradual increase. And inflation is also part of the equation. So says UBC Professor Richard Barrichello, who was involved in the research. He spoke with Michelle Elliott on BC Today.
There's one disturbing thing, and that is we still have food prices going up faster than overall inflation. We've been more successful on the inflation front overall. Food prices are still a couple of percentage points higher, and that's both puzzling and unfortunate.
The federal government rolled out a major climate change initiative today. It's a regulatory framework to cap oil and gas emissions. The sector is a huge source of jobs and greenhouse gas pollution. As David Thurton explains, some are concerned the plan goes too far, while others say it's not enough.
An industry whose emissions know no limits is now facing one.
We're the first country in the world to do this.
The Liberal government revealing its plan to put a lid on some emissions from the oil and gas sector, an industry that accounts for the largest portion of Canada's greenhouse gas pollution.
Are putting into place a cap effectively as a backstop to ensure that companies are actually making the progress that they need to make.
In 2019, oil and gas emissions under the new policy hit 171 megatons. Under the proposed cap, that should fall to at least 112 megatons, a one-third cut enforced by a cap-and-trade system.
What you do is you put a ceiling, a limit on the amount of pollution that a company, or in that case a sector, can emit, and that cap goes down over time.
It took no time, though, for the Alberta government to oppose the measure, saying Ottawa is infringing on its jurisdiction.
There's no question that if they continue on this path, it will end up with court, and I think we will win.
Industry has concerns as well, saying the policy will mean less Canadian oil and gas production.
If Canada blocks the growth of our liquefied natural gas industry or something like that, we are saying to India, to Indonesia, keep burning coal.
While some say it goes too far, environmental groups say it doesn't go far enough.
We are a bit disappointed to see the level that they've set the target at. Now, there is this 60-day consultation period, so we're going to be pushing very hard to see if we can fix that.
Canadians won't see the cap phased in until early 2026, meaning that it won't be fully in place until after the next election. With Conservatives opposing the cap, it could become an election issue. David Thurton, CBC News, Ottawa.
Cindy Woodhouse has been elected as the new national chief of the Assembly of First Nations. The convention balloting was drawn out over 6 rounds of voting. And as Olivia Stefanovich explains, Woodhouse takes the post amid calls for unity.
Well, after several rounds of ballots, we now have a new national chief of the Assembly of First Nations. Cindy Woodhouse, who was, up until today, Manitoba's regional chief for the AFN. Woodhouse is from Penamutang First Nation in Manitoba, and she's now the third female national chief of the Assembly, after interim national chief Joanna Bernard and Roseanne Archibald, who was ousted from the top job after misconduct allegations. Now, Woodhouse was part of the executive committee that recommended Archibald's removal, and Woodhouse, in her victory speech, lifted up Archibald and commended her for breaking the glass ceiling. Now, this wasn't easy for Woodhouse to become the national chief of the Assembly of First Nations. It was a battle between her and her opponent, David Pratt, the first vice chief of the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations from Saskatchewan. Pratt refused to concede last night after he was trailing in the ballots behind Woodhouse. But the reason why Woodhouse couldn't win is because she didn't have the 60% needed of votes to become the next national chief, which is required by the AFN's charter. And the only reason why voting ended last night is because this convention center that we're standing in actually had to shut down at midnight. So voting continued this morning, but the ballots were destroyed after an agreement was made between Woodhouse's team and Pratt's team. Pratt conceded. He told the Assembly that he made this decision so there could be unity at the AFN, and this will be Woodhouse's challenge moving forward. Olivia Stefanovic, CBC News, Ottawa.
Canada's Public Health Agency says 5 people have now died in a Salmonella outbreak linked to cantaloupes. The fruits were recalled in November in 6 provinces, including BC, Ontario, and Quebec. But the BC Centre for Disease Control says no deaths have been reported in this province. The Public Health Agency of Canada says nearly 130 people became ill from the outbreak, mostly children 5 and under and adults 65 and older. Malachita and Ruby brand cantaloupes have been identified as the likely source of the outbreak. New research shows it's becoming common for children and teens in the U.S. to be given melatonin to help them sleep. The study found nearly 1 in 5 school-aged children under the age of 14 are taking it. As Tashana Reid reports, it's a trend pediatricians here in Canada are watching with caution.
Hello, everybody. From naps to bedtime, for these parents, sleep is a constant concern.
Some good nights, some bad nights. He's not slept through the night yet.
Risa Waldman knows that struggle.
We were rather desperate to help her get a good night's sleep.
When her daughter was 5, she gave her a low dose of melatonin.
Honestly, it really has worked for us.
And new research suggests more parents are trying it. The survey of almost 1,000 American children under the age of 14 found nearly 1 in 5 were given melatonin, mostly in gummy form and for more than 12 months. The hormone is approved by Health Canada as a natural health product for adults, but not for kids under 12.
So melatonin is something that absolutely we do use in our sleep program here, but we're using it in conjunction with overall sleep hygiene advice.
Dr. Reshma Amin only advises short-term use, about 6 to 8 weeks.
So we actually have no data on the long-term safety of use of melatonin in children.
And there are other concerns, including accidental ingestions. From 2012 to 2021, pediatric ingestions of melatonin reported to U.S. poison control centers increased by 530%. And a Canadian study found inconsistent doses in melatonin products.
If they get too much, it can have very negative side effects, problems with bad dreams and aggression.
In many countries, melatonin is only available with a prescription.
You would have some confidence as a parent that what's on the label of the bottle is actually what your child is getting.
Sleep experts say parents should take other steps first, keeping a consistent wake-up and bedtime, ensuring kids get enough hours of sleep, and avoiding screens before bed. Tashana Reid, CBC News, Toronto.
Up next, some unique artwork is being sold by a BC sanctuary, made by a couple of furry, feathery artists. We'll show you some of their masterpieces right after the break.
Murray Bedell uses his teeth every day to do things like use a phone or to put on his jacket. He's been doing this since he lost both of his arms in a farming accident in 1975. Bidel's dentist warned him his teeth would eventually wear down and fall out. And this past summer, that began to happen.
So then it got me really thinking, what am I going to do?
Bidel and his wife Janet began researching dental implants, a more durable and accessible option for him than dentures. Bidel says local dentists gave him estimates around $60,000, and they tried asking the Saskatchewan government for help covering that cost.
It's my health. It's something I need. I'm not looking to be pretty. I'm looking to be functional.
The Ministry of Health tells CBC News dental implants are only covered when they're recommended by a specialist due to tumors or birth defects. Not falling in those categories, the Bidels decided to get the work done in Mexico for roughly $20,000 less.
I felt he was being dealt with like a whole person, not like a mouth with a disability.
But still half your life savings for your teeth.
Yes. It's a big... I told my kids the other day that I was spending their inheritance, and they said, well, that's no problem. They said that you look after yourself.
The Canadian Society for Disability in Oral Health says the lack of coverage is very frustrating and very common across Canada, and many advocates are eager to see how the proposed National Dental Care Plan will help people with disabilities.
Why should someone have to go out of country to receive care that we have skilled individuals here that can provide it, except for the fact that it costs a lot of money?
Back in Fort Qu'Appelle, Bidel says the coverage for his teeth is just as essential as that for his prosthetics.
Why isn't it available? It's just like my arms. I need my arms. I got to have them.
Because Bidel says good oral health isn't just about teeth, it's about a good quality of life. Jesse Anton, CBC News, Fort Qu'Appelle.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for making CBC British Columbia's Food Bank Day a huge success.
We kicked off the holiday season with a day of special programming, festive performances, and a whole lot of generosity from you.
So far, we have raised an incredible amount for food banks across BC, and you can still donate all month long. Let's make the season kind for people in need. Head to cbc.ca/foodbankday. The Kamloops Wildlife Sanctuary is auctioning off some special artwork. It's painted by the furry critters who call the sanctuary home. Have a look.
Hi, I'm Tracy Reynolds. I'm the animal care manager at the BC Wildlife Park. I have two paintings by some of our very talented artists at the park. Our badger, Bloom, did this one, and the one behind me here is Clover, the spirit bear. So a lot of this is just enrichment, ways for us to interact with the animals. We do them in a variety of ways. So a lot of times it is involved with either sometimes you just place a canvas there with the food, or not food, but just the paint on it, and they'll just interact with it just out of curiosity, depending on the animal, or sometimes we'll use food as an incentive. This one here is painted by one of our elk, and this was one of a new technique we tried. So we put the paint on the canvas, or the keeper put the paint on the canvas and then put some cellophane on top, and then put the grain on top of the canvas. Hoofstock they're not as curious as some of the other animals, so sometimes they'll just boop with their nose, and use their nose to smear it around, so this is a good way to get them to just move it around, and then take the plastic off so they don't actually eat, obviously, the paint when they're eating their grain. These two we're going to sell as a pair because they're both our porcupine Mrs. Prickle's 2 left feet. So both of them are her left foot. She actually has a partial paralysis, so we've done a lot of work with her feet, touching them, and we've had to do laser therapy and things like that to help her regain some mobility in that leg. So we're able to take that foot and just actually push it onto the canvas. The wolves like to roll in the on the paintings, so they usually, lots of times we have to let the guests know that we are painting with our wolves because they're white, and they will have red or blue or green, and usually around the collar because they like to roll in onto the canvas. A lot of these paintings either have a starting bid of $50 or $100. It's a closed auction, so you're just going to have to guess and have a pretty good bid if you really want that painting.
Way better than I can do. It's abstract, I'll give it that.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
That's way better than what I can do.
Exactly.
But if I can roll on a canvas, I like it.
Well, that's a segment for a different show.
I don't know what to say to that. Let's talk about the weather.
You don't have to say anything.
Just showing the radar here really quickly to see, again, some flurries breaking into the interior when we saw that little bit of rain come to the south coast, but not much overall. Still dry up in the northeast, and that's the big problem here. So I just want to do a quick recap of our drought ratings. Now, this is where we would be in a normal year this time. So 2021, fairly normal. Drought had pretty much gone away by the time we rolled into the end of the season, and this is at the end of October. So that was when the drought, that's the last update of that year. Now, in 2023, you can see quite severe. If we look at 2022, it's a fairly similar map. The coast is better this year than it was then, but parts of the interior are now worse. So some changes, but overall, I mean, the Northeast has seen those drought conditions straight through this year. There's been pretty much no chance for it to let up. And at this rate, it doesn't seem like it will next year either. So we are in quite a precarious situation and a long-lasting situation as well. It's been quite a severe drought season, and just the carryover and the similarity between these two maps, because of how concerning last year was, is a big deal, to say the least. Now, we are going to get some rain, mostly for the south coast, and then a lot of that is going to turn into flurries. You can see the atmospheric river make it down further south, but a lot of that rain will make its way here. Nothing like what we saw on Monday, I should say. Saturday will bring some rain, but nothing like that. You can see some of that rain come in here, breaking into the south. That cloud, that system passes through. Plenty of rain comes through, but a lot of it turns to snow because our freezing levels are going to be quite low. So we actually do have a small chance of actually seeing some snow here in Vancouver as we get into the weekend. On Saturday, it is a possibility. You can see our lows quite low right here. Not quite low enough, it seems, for it's not quite below freezing, but could be cool enough for snow, so that is a possibility. If we take a look at our accumulation map, nothing happening tomorrow. We're fairly dry, and then that system starts to move in. We see plenty of snow in many places, and then if we zoom in here, and I should say that was rain accumulation, not snow, so that's why it said it seemed so little, and you can see possibility of some snow here in Vancouver. But overall, not too much rain coming in terms of conditions. Tomorrow is fairly dry for the most part, with a little bit of snow happening in some places. And if we zoom in here, I didn't put snow on the 5-day forecast because it isn't that likely, but it is possible. And then we see a pretty dry start to next week.
Okay, Darius, thanks very much.
Thanks, Dan.
The much-anticipated Spotify Wrapped was released just a few days ago. It's the music streaming service's personalized and interactive breakdown of Spotify users' listening habits for the year. Turns out a Kamloops Swiftie was excited to discover she is in the top 0.05% of Taylor Swift listeners this year, beating her ranking of 0.5% from last year.
Honestly, it looks like you listened to a lot of my music this year. Doesn't matter which era you were listening to, I'm very, very grateful to be on your Spotify Wrapped.
Hi, my name is Lindsay Harris, and I'm a Swiftie. I've always been a casual fan, but I think that I really intently got into her music in 2020 when she released the Folklore album. I listen to Taylor Swift a lot when I'm working or when I'm hanging out with my daughter or when I need to feel my feelings. This year, I listened to 30,827 minutes of Taylor Swift. Her writing is poetic. Her songwriting is so beautiful, and I think that she's just a really, really fabulous artist. I think that she really gives voice to experiences of young girlhood or womanhood that are often really denigrated in our society, but she does that with such eloquence and such a deep and rich understanding of the human experience. Taylor Swift's music brings together mothers and daughters and grandmothers all across the world to experience something really profound together. She's actually playing in Vancouver on my birthday next year, so I really was hopeful that I could manifest tickets, but it didn't work out, and I do totally understand that, because there's just there's just millions of people who want to see her. I think that I'm going to take my daughter and we'll dress up and we'll go and hang out outside the stadium and just tailgate.
It's the ultimate test of endurance why a group of UBC scientists is rowing across the Atlantic. How long that's going to take is next.
All right, so Faye, I want to thank you so much for doing this with us today. But while we're chatting, we're going to be building some mini skateboards, and you can add like whatever designs you want. I want you to be as creative as possible. And then afterwards, we're going to test these skateboards on these ramps right here, and we're going to see who has the best skateboarding chops. So you ready for that?
Oh, yeah, I'm ready. I'm not that good at fingerboarding.
I suck too, so like, don't worry, even worried about it. So I'm going to pass you one of these.
Right.
Here you go.
Thank you.
And we're going to start off. We're going to decorate the boards.
Oh, I want to make the board I have currently.
The orange with the little skulls on it? That's actually kind of cool. Can you talk to me a bit about like the feather in your helmet that you always have on?
The feather in my helmet is from one of my pet ducks, Richard.
You have a pet duck?
You have two. Yeah.
That's like the best name I've ever heard. Pet duck, oh my God.
Richard and Nexo. I have been skating with the feather for actually I feel like a while now, and I believe that it gives me luck.
Pan-Am Games what was that experience like for you?
It was really cool seeing all the other like athletes from the other sports.
Yeah.
Even like not people on Canada, just like, I don't know, it was cool.
What were the tricks that you did?
Name all my tricks.
Yeah.
So I started out, I did a alley-oop, and then front lip slide, tail slide, front side on the hip, and then I like all in and smacked my tail. And I did another trick on the wall. I Smith grind this like round cradle thing, backsmith. And then did a nose grind, and then I came up and did a backsider.
I can't imagine being that young and performing on a stage that high. What was it like before you went on and competed? Were you stressed? Were you confident?
I think I felt the most confident I've ever felt at any contest.
Really?
Because I was, okay, you're like landing this. I was just one trick at a time, and my coach was like, you like look so good when you're skating right now, and it kind of gave me that like extra, I don't know. It's
like
cool.
that confidence?
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna test these out now on some ramps, and we're gonna see who has the best skateboarding chops.
Yeah.
Arjun Ron, Faye DeFazio, Eberts.
We're gonna start off with 360.
I don't think I can beat that one. Okay, guys.
Down the ramp.
Smooth. And then
back up right here. Back up there.
Oh, guys, crazy.
And then we go up here.
What a run.
And then we go down the stairs. Is she going up the rail? No, she
I fell, guys.
She gets back up.
My hand's injured.
And then we go back up the Kiss News Railway, and to end it off, we do a quick. There you go.
Oh, okay, we're done here.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
For 37 years, British Columbians have been donating to food banks at CBC British Columbia's Food Bank Day, raising more than $18 million for food banks in BC. December 1st kicked off the annual charity drive and continues to the end of the month. We thank you for generously donating and supporting local communities in our province. Make the season kind and donate until December 31st at cbc.ca/foodbankday.
Four marine scientists are trying to row across the Atlantic Ocean, unassisted, to raise money for ocean conservation. The women are now at their starting point at San Sebastián de la Gomera in Spain.
They're going to row about 5,000 kilometers and could spend up to 8 weeks on the water. One of those scientists is a UBC marine ecologist. She spoke with Early Edition host Stephen Quinn this morning.
We're all feeling good. We're just doing our final checks, and we're doing a confirmatory row tomorrow to check a few last systems, and then we'll be ready to go.
And what are you provisioning the boat with? Because, I mean, you're going to burn a lot of calories here.
Definitely. We're going to be burning about 4,000 to 5,000 calories a day. So that's honestly what most of the gear on the boat is. It's all food. So we have 4,000 calories worth of rations for each person per day for 55 days. And that's a mixture of backpacking meals, which you can just rehydrate with hot water, and also 2,000 calories of snacks. So all of the granola bars and M&Ms and chips that you can imagine.
Long way. Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, on YouTube, as well as our website, cbc.ca/BC.
We'll have your next local news at 11 o'clock right after the National. See you then.